Hi there, I'm Lauren and welcome back to my YouTube channel Sweet Smiling Soul, where I talk about all things sewing. In today's video I'm showing you how to sew the little guitar for the Playtime Storybook. So this is the little extra that we make for the music room. You have the option of attaching it directly to your book and not making it a 3D version, or you have the option of making it a 3D item that is separate from the book and that the doll can play with. So the Playtime Storybook is my new sewing pattern, which is a lovely addition to the Dollhouse Storybook and the Adventure Book sewing patterns. So if you'd like to take a look at these patterns, you can visit the links in the description below. And if you have any questions along the way, feel free to email me hello@sweetsmilingsoul.com. You can also comment on this video as well. So if you're ready to sew the guitar, then get your instructions, have them handy, and use this video as an extra visual to guide you along the way. Now we're going to work on the guitar, and you have the option to sew it directly onto the page, maybe like on a bit of an angle so it looks like it's leaning, or you can make it separate so that it's more of an extra that the doll can kind of play with. I've decided that I'm going to make it separate from the book, so I've kind of doubled some of my pieces here. So if you're just sewing it onto the page, then you only need to have the front of the guitar pieces, and those are the pieces that you'll need. Whereas if you're going to sew it together and make it separate from the book, you'll also need a couple of pieces extra cut out. I've also got a bit of interfacing here. It's not necessary. You could also use cardboard if you like. It's just to give the neck of the guitar a bit of structure, so when we sew that together it'll just kind of have more structure like that. I've got 2 layers of felt, but one of my layers of felt is quite thin, so it just felt a little bit flimsy when I was experimenting, so I think I'm gonna incorporate this interfacing inside and then just stitch around it. But yeah, like I said, you could use cardboard as well, and that's just optional. If you're making it like me, then you'll need the front of your guitar, but you'll also need pieces for the back of the guitar as well, which is just these 3 pieces here, and then interfacing if you want it, or cardboard. So those are the materials I'm using for the guitar, and those are your options. Some of the things you'll need for the guitar are pins, some clips maybe, some thread and a needle, and some stuffing if you want to stuff it. That's optional as well. You could just leave it like just with the 2 layers, and you could even add some interfacing if you need it, just to give it a bit more structure there, but you don't have to have it 3D. It can be flat like that and you can use it that way. But if you want to kind of give it a little bit more of a 3D effect, a little bit like the teddy bear, you might want to add a little bit of stuffing inside. So that's optional. I've got some tweezers and stuffing and just things that might help me stuff it later on. So I will be hand sewing mine because I just find that it'll be a bit easier. You probably could get this part under the machine, but because I'd like to stuff it, I think I'm just going to do it by hand. I did the teddy bear by hand and I found it was just easier to do, so I sewed a little blanket stitch around the edge of the teddy bear, and I think I might do that same effect with the guitar. And I also hand stitched like these parts on. I think I could also do that here. I've got a little bit of adhesive on the back of this felt here, which might help, but yeah, I think I'm just going to sew most of it. I might use a little bit of glue here and there, or just keep it handy just in case I need it. But there are no rules or anything. It's more just like what works for you. Like if you find it's too fiddly to sew with your machine, then maybe you'll have more control with your hand. So I've got some dark brown and some black thread here as well, because I've decided that I'll sew my pieces on, so I just want a few different colors. So yeah, that's everything you need, and if there's anything else that pops up along the way, I'll let you know. But you've also got a list of materials inside the instructions as well, and you've got the step-by-step photo instructions for this part as well. So I'm going to treat these pieces as my front and these pieces as my back, and this is something I might use later on. So I'll start by just pressing this adhesive felt to this piece here, but I'm also going to sew it. I'm just going to make use of that adhesive. So I've got the small circle directly on top of the bigger circle, but because that's already kind of stuck on there, I think I'm just going to take a little bit of glue from my glue stick just to help it stabilize while I'm sewing it, and I'm going to place it just in the middle where those curves are, and I'll just press it, and then I'm just going to sew on the black part close to the edge, and then that means I'm catching all layers. And I'm just going to do a little bit of a running stitch, so it's not going to be perfect, it's just going to be enough to like make sure everything's secured. It might be a bit difficult to see those stitches, but I've sewn around the edge, just close to the edge of the black piece, and that's attached now. I'm going to knot that, and I'm just going to attach the next part of it, and I'll do a similar thing. I'll just stitch a few running stitches. I've got this little rectangle here that I'm going to place underneath, and it's normally where the strings are kind of attached. I don't know the terminology. I'm just kind of adding the simple details of a guitar, so I know that this is the neck, but that's about it. So I'm going to change my thread to like a dark brown just so it's less obvious. This part might even be fine like to do with your sewing machine. It's just a matter of preference really, and you know, you just try it, and if it works with your machine then it works, and if it doesn't then you might hand sew or decide that you just want to use some fabric glue and put it together that way. But yeah, there's no right or wrong, it's more just what works for you. It's just all about getting creative and just using what you have, using what works, and letting your imagination kind of roam free a little bit as well. So I'm going to place the rectangle about there, about 1/2 centimeter underneath the larger circle there, and I'm going to stitch that in place. So again, I can use my glue stick if I want to just add a little bit of glue to keep it there while I sew. Doesn't need much, just enough to stop it from shifting. I'll just again do the same thing, start on one side and do a little bit of a running stitch. So that's that. I think that's good enough. So now I'm going to take the neck pieces and I'm going to place this small piece just slightly overlapping the top of the longer piece, and you might want to glue it again, but I'm just going to stitch it straight on. So I'll do like a running stitch or a back stitch, I'll see what works. And this is all going to be stitched over again when we sew the back to the front, so I'm not too fussed if it's not that strong. So I'm just going to do that for now. I've just got 3 stitches in there and it feels secure, so that's enough. So we've got our 2 pieces ready to go now, and if you were to sew it directly onto the book, you would just put it like slightly on an angle, and then you would place the neck just above those circles there, and I would start by gluing it down just to stabilize it a little bit on the page, and then I would start to sew around the neck and then come around, and then I would sew around the body, and I would sew it that way so that this is attached to the body of the guitar. So that's what you would do if you were to sew it directly onto the page, but if you want to make it separate, then we'll move on to the next step. So before I attach it to the back of the guitar, I'm going to attach the neck to the body just so that it's connected, and I'll do that by adding a little bit of glue to start, and then I'll sew just around the edge a little bit. So I've just lightly added some glue to the neck there just so that it's in the position that I want it. And before I sew it on, I'm going to do the same step that I did before, and I'm just going to sew this piece to the longer piece of the neck. Just overlap it a little bit, the same amount that I did before, which is like just under 1/2 centimeter. It's just overlapping the tiniest bit, and I'm just going to do a couple of little running stitches. So that step's done. I'll put the back of the guitar aside for now, and what I'm going to do is sew just a couple of stitches the same way that I sewed up here. So I just want it to kind of be subtle, but like at the same time strong enough to keep the neck attached to the body. So I'm sewing along the bottom here, but then I'm also going to sew along the sides just to make sure that it's secure. So I've come around the edges there and then along the bottom. So I've got my front piece ready to go. So now I'm going to do the same to the back piece. If I line it up and line up the neck, then I know where to place the back of it. So this part of the neck is going down just the same amount as the front part of the neck. So you just want to make sure that it's lining up so that when we sew it together, you don't have like a shorter piece. So yeah, I would say about there. So I can about 2 centimeters centimeters down from the top. That's really all it is, yeah. 2 centimeters down from the top. So I'll do the same for this side. I'll just add a little bit of glue just to stabilize it. I've got my wrong side being placed down, and again I can just double check that I'm lining everything up, and that looks good. I'll just stitch the same thing that I stitched there. When I start sewing it together, like the front to the back, I'll use a blanket stitch around the edge, only because I like that look. But if you don't want to do that, if you just want to do like a running stitch like this, that should also work, but just make sure that you're going close enough to the edge so that you got enough room to stuff it. If that's what you want to do, you don't have to stuff it. You can just place them together and have like a flat guitar. So that's all done, and now I'm not going to worry about knotting this. I'm going to continue to sew the front to the back. It's up to you. You can tie it off, or you can just keep going with that thread if it's in a good position for you. I'm going to take this bit of interfacing that I have, which is pretty much the thickness of a little bit of card, and I've cut it down so that it's just a little bit more narrow than the neck. I'm going to keep that in there just to kind of give it some stability, and I think I'll just stuff the body of the guitar. It's up to you. Like if you think you can get the stuffing inside the neck, then you might not need to worry about the interfacing, but I don't think that's gonna work too well. I mean, it's worth a try, but I would rather just keep the neck structured by it with a little bit of interfacing, and then just stuff the body. So I'll keep that there. I'll get my other piece and I'll place them wrong sides together and make sure that everything lines up. So here you might want to pin or clip, make sure that you've got everything lined up, and then pin the neck later or clip the neck later. So I'm just going to line up that interfacing there and then layer that over it, and then the clips, and I just want to make sure everything stays where it should. So I'll put one there, one around the neck. I've still got my thread here that I'm going to continue to sew with. I've got enough clips to keep everything in place so that everything is covered up. I'm going to make sure that the interfacing that I have is just not poking out. We want to make sure it's straight and hidden, so that looks fine. So I'm going to start stitching along here, and then before I get to the neck, I'll leave an opening so that I can stuff it with some hobby fill that I've got here, and then I'll make sure that the body is like a nice shape, and then I'll continue to go around the neck of the guitar as well, and then I'll finish over here. So I just want to make sure that I'm stopping to stuff it, making sure that it's all closed up at the end. You know, like I said, you don't have to stuff it. You can just keep it like more of a 2D kind of shape if you like that still works, as long as you find it's like structured enough. If it's not, then it might be worth adding some interfacing inside as well, similar to the guitar neck here. So I'm staying close to the edge, but making sure that I'm being consistent with my stitches, and yeah, only coming down maybe like 2 millimeters or so that there's enough room to stuff it. So I'm catching both sides here, just checking every now and then that it looks good at the back as well. So I've come around here and I've stopped just after the curve there, and now I'm going to carefully stuff inside the body of the guitar. And I've got to remember that that bit of interfacing, because it's not actually attached to the felt, it's just kind of sitting in there. I've just got to remember that that's there and it's not going to shift or anything when I start stuffing it. I'll take a little bit first, and I'm going to use tweezers to help me put it in. Like, I'll try with my fingers first, but if it gets a bit too difficult, then I'll need to probably use tweezers, but that's okay. It's easy to get tweezers in there. Just put a little bit in. I'm not going to stuff it so that it's like impossible to close. Just want to stuff it enough so that it looks a little bit more 3D. So I stuff the bottom first. I think that should be okay. So I started at the bottom, started stuffing down there, and then I just gradually came up to the top, so I can continue to stitch around the side there, stitch that opening closed, and then I'll probably knot it at the end only because I'm running out of thread. I'll have to get more thread, but then I'll continue to do the same stitch along the neck and up and over, and make sure that that's all stitched down as well. So I've stitched up the opening there, and now I'm going to stitch around the neck. So I've started coming up along here, and then I'm just going to continue to do the blanket stitch all the way down to the bottom there. So I ended up keeping the same colour thread. Hopefully it still looks okay. So I've got my interfacing inside here, but I'm not really catching it because I cut it so that it's narrower than the neck of the guitar. But if you've got like a fine interfacing, or like if it's not so thick, then you can probably just sew through it. But mine's a little bit thicker, so that's why I ended up making it smaller than the width of the guitar, making sure that I'm catching both layers. So I'm coming around the top of the neck now, and I'm just going to gather all of those layers. Make sure that it's all together. Okay, I'm running out of thread. I'll have to change my thread now, but basically you can see I've come along the edge there and it's starting to come together, and once that's all stitched it'll be stable enough. So yeah, that's how it's looking. I'm going to change my thread and I'm going to continue to sew, and I'll close up that side of the neck and finish at this little corner here, and then it should be all finished. So I've finished the guitar, I've stitched around the edge of the neck there, and yeah, it's all looking how I thought it would. So yeah, that is the 3D version of the guitar. So if we take one of the dolls, you can see how it looks doll size. I mean, it's a little bit bigger. Not everything that we make in this series is in proportion, but that's okay. It's all part of the fun. And I think, yeah, it would actually be quite cute with a guitar strap. I don't know why I didn't think of that before, but you could definitely add something like a little strap so that it can go around the neck and shoulders of the doll as well. That's how the guitar looks. And if we place it against the music room scene, you can see there it's bringing it to life a little bit more. So that's the guitar. And yeah, it can sit in the room, they can have a little dance and have a little play of the guitar, and yeah, it just kind of finishes the music room. So that is how you make the guitar. So we have finished the guitar. Let me know what you think of the little guitar in the comments below. So with each little extra that we make, the Playtime Storybook comes to life and becomes a lot more fun and playful. I really hope you enjoyed putting this together today. Like I said, if you have any questions, comment below or send me an email. I'd love to know how you're going with your Playtime Storybook and sewing all the little fun extras together that come with it. If you're looking for the patterns, they're in the description below. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe. I share lots of different videos on sewing. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.